it's taking ownership of stuff. I think that's a big thing of living that intentional life, is taking ownership. We all make mistakes. A lot of times you hear, don't turn your hobbies into work. That can be, there's a fine line to walk there, and I walk it every single day. But the whole time, I just kind of had that notebook of, what am I going to do when my opportunity comes? Yeah. And I think oftentimes in life, it's not so much what am I going to do, it's learning from maybe the mistakes of others and watching and being a part of a lot of that. I think sometimes we try to focus so heavily on the positive, which is an incredible mindset, but we also need to be very much aware of the negative and the bad things that are happening, and understand, well, how do I avoid that? When I get my chance to be a business owner, when I get my chance to be a VP of marketing, when I get my chance to be a creator, whatever that is, what are the mistakes I've watched other people weigh, and how am I going to avoid that? How am I going to stay true to myself and surpass that? Yeah. That puts you in the fast lane, right? If you can avoid the hiccups, it puts you in the fast lane to a lot of growth, right? The book, The Obstacle is the Way, and being able to look at something and understand, well, hey, that just means there's a solution here. And I've always believed that business and your roles and everything you're doing, everything in life, it's about problem solving, right? And so throughout that whole journey, at New Skin, at Hoyt, and even here at Mountain Ops, people make mistakes, and you can't be afraid to make mistakes. Right. I think that's the biggest thing. That's so much of growing a business. You are going to make mistakes in life, period. In hunting, you're going to make mistakes. And it's like, well, what did I learn from that? I was sneaking down this trail, and I shouldn't have stepped on that log. I should have stepped over it, and somehow there was a bedded elk or a bedded deer right there, and I blew it. That was my opportunity. And so you just put that in your back pocket, put that in the bank, and just remember that next time. Don't step on that log. If you're at a show, or you're sending an email, or you're designing something, it's like, man, I got this feedback from somebody. Anyways, I'm rambling a little bit.
No, it's good. It's great advice, because I want those listening to understand, like, this is about conquering. It's like, how can we add as many tools to the toolboxes of these individuals, their tool belt, that they can use to conquer as well. So I love learning from experience and even failure and mistakes, because it teaches us so much. But it's a choice. It sounds like it's a choice that you've made to say, okay, as an intentional person, there are going to be mistakes made, but I'm going to utilize that to fuel my future and to kind of point me in the right direction.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people let that pass them by. It's like, I made a mistake, or they don't want to own up to it, and it just becomes something that they did, and it's not something to be learned or applied.
Yeah, you're much more articulate than I am, but that's perfectly said. It's taking ownership of stuff. I think that's a big thing of living that intentional life, is taking ownership. We all make mistakes. Some of them are more impactful than others, but when you can own that and you can be responsible, one, it generates a much more level, I won't say playing field essentially, but it allows you to basically relate to that person, and it kind of desensitizes a little bit of it in some way, right? It makes it more comfortable to go about it when somebody takes ownership. But man, if you avoid that, if you run from your problems, if you don't own your mistakes and you don't learn from them and apply them to be better, or share your losses with somebody else and help them be better so that they avoid that. I would imagine, I don't have kids, but I would imagine that's what a lot of parenting's like, right? You're imparting, hey man, here's all the mistakes I made. Here's what I did in high school. Here's what I did in college. Here's what I did financially, whatever. Hey, I want to keep you in the fast lane. I want to see you be successful. And I think you sum all that up into, how do you make people better around you, right? And being intentional and imparting in good stuff and serving people. That's cool. That's a big part of it. I think that's a lot of what a business and life is finding ways to serve people.
That's probably what you're all about right now with the Final Rise, right?
Very, very much so. And I'm learning more about it every day. That's, I think sometimes people look at a business or a business owner and think, wow, they've just got it figured out. And it's like, no, you don't. You know what you know, and there's a lot that you don't. And so, I'm continuing to grow. I'm in a different phase of my life, right? Everything that I learned and was able to apply to get me to this point has been super, super helpful. But now I'm beginning to navigate new waters in my life, and there's things that I don't know, and things that I'm learning, and new mistakes that I'm making, right? And it's you're constantly learning and growing and changing and making those mistakes. There's no way around it.
There isn't. No, I agree. And if you focus on that intention of like, it's just going to happen, and you test, learn, apply, So you talked about the Dabo Sweeney. I remember that podcast. I think you shared it with me. I've listened to it multiple times. I love it. Love his mentality and his culture that he's built and everything. Yep. But he was ready when the opportunity came. So you were kind of in a similar mentality, and you're here full time at Mountain Ops, but then all of a sudden you're some things are happening, some opportunities are coming your way. They're knocking on your door. And you took advantage of that, which I remember sitting down and talking to you about those, and it's like, heck yeah, I'll
Yep.
be your cheerleader. Like, I'll help you. Like, I can't help anyway, but like, I'll be a support. What, how did that kind of come about? Like, when was that, and what kind of sparked the Final Rise? And was it just like, oh, that's the name, that's this, like, did it come quickly, or was it like this process you went through?
Yeah, I guess a lot of the origin story. So I think Trevor's clearly communicated. I very much love hunting. Not only big game hunting, but I really enjoy upland hunting. I enjoy the dogs. Grew up with dogs and horses my whole life. I'm an animal guy, and I've always loved training dogs and just working with them. I think that's one of the most beautiful things to experience in the world. If you haven't seen a good bird dog, it's poetic. But Final Rise, it was one of those things, as Mountain Ops continued to grow and our incredible team was growing, you kind of go from that startup mode of, hey, everybody wears every hat. Like, I remember going down and putting labels on supplements in that first year. It didn't matter who it was. It didn't matter what your quote unquote title was.
Yeah, we all joined in.
You all joined in. It was all hands on deck. We were committed to the brand. We were committed to the success of what needed to happen to be able to help us to progress. And as things grew and progressed, we had some awesome team members come in, and that started taking hats off my plate. And so all of a sudden it went from, man, this is startup mode. You're always working. The phone's always ringing. You've always got something going on, to, man, I've got a little bit of time. I'm not one to sit around and watch TV and stuff like that. I'm going to shoot my bow, or I'm going to train my dogs, or I'm going to go be outside. And because I am so close to the hunting space, I'm obviously looking around. I'm looking at different markets and looking to things that I'm passionate to, and saw what I believed was a great opportunity in the upland bird hunting space to create products of the same caliber and quality that we're using in the big game space. How do we merge a lot of the textiles, a lot of the components and the design features, and take everything that's happening in some of these incredible businesses and take that to a space that's kind of underserviced, because it's small. I'm not going to pretend that bird hunter numbers are even close to that of the big game community, let alone whitetail community. But there's enough of them, right? And so as we were growing, I look at it. I love hunting. The goal was, man, if I could afford an additional out-of-state deer tag every year, Colorado, Wyoming, whatever, Idaho, man, that would be awesome. A couple $100 extra in my pocket would be super. I'll back up a little bit. My parents owned an industrial sewing business when I was growing up, so I always knew how to sew. I had sewing machines at my house already.
I remember that about you too, and in high school and stuff, sewing stuff for yourself.
Yep. I was just always tinkering with my gear, right? I was always that. I wanted to solve problems. I think we talked a little bit about that earlier. That's what so much of business is, and being a leader, and just being able to problem solve. And so I looked at a market that I was very passionate about, that I knew a lot about, and thought, man, I know a lot about gear. I'm fortunate to have access to a lot of different products. I got a lot of great relationships with these people in this space. Nobody's servicing this market to the level that I think it could be done. I know that consumer is the same dude that big game hunts and fly fishes and all these different things, right? And so it's like, he understands the value of this gear, but nobody's creating it. So that was the goal and the vision. And again, awesome. It was like, I'm just going to sell. If I could sell, my goal was 20. I was like, if I could sell 20 of these in a year, I would be on cloud nine.